For those that don't know me, I'm a very blunt person. They've said it's nice because when I go to America, and it sounds stupid, it shows how naive I am. They say you're really candid, and I'm going, what's candid mean? What's candid mean? So then you'll get somebody who understands me. They go, oh, it means you're blunt. And so I'm either candid or blunt, but it all boils down to there's some book come in. There's some books down there, and if anybody's interested, they're £10 each. But the second book hasn't really been a very successful one as far as sales goes. It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to become a J.K. Rowling, but it's more about the spiritual path. And today, what I want to do is I want you to. I purposely didn't bring the mats. That's easy to bring them, they're easy to put together. But today I want you to get to the point of throwing, but not to throw. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes giving you a biography to tell you how we get here today. Those of you who have been watching YouTube films of great masters and people over the years, you'll notice that there's not one who's the same. They're all different. And if I said to any of you from different styles, we'll say, Shihan, Aikido, nobody flinches because you just know what I'm talking about. But if we had 4 people stand up and do it with their partner, not one of them would be exactly the same performed as the other. And that's what makes you and me individuals. So my book, The Eyes of a Child, comes from when I was young, and I remember my uncle buying me a watch because he about 7 years of age, he wanted me to tell the time. I wasn't at all interested in telling time. I was interested in just being a kid, you know. Anyhow, 2 weeks later, watch was in the drawer. The novelty had worn off, and that's where it stayed. When I got to 11 or 12, I went to work with my father, and everybody kept saying, what are you going to do when you grow up? So I found the pressure of adults on a child. So I must have been quite smart. I suffer from dyslexia, but I must have been quite smart because what I realised was, as long as I agreed with them or went along with what they want me to be, a carpenter, an electrician, or whatever they were saying at the time or what they wanted me to be, I used to go, yeah, I might do that. But in my head, in Tony's head, I'd say, I don't know what I'm going to be. I'm not going to let them force me into being something I don't want to be. Now, we all have this ability even today, but what's happened is the world has twisted us and changed us and made us become another sheep in the herd, and we have to conform to certain things, rules, regulations. So, when I was 23, I was running my own business in a little shed, and the guy wanted me, who broke down, this is in my first book, I think, but the vehicle broke down, and it was one of his workers. When the boss come to pay me, he said, I've got 4 vehicles, 3 vans, and I've got a Rover car. If you want my business for a year, I'm trying to get Aikido students for a new 12-week class. I'll give you my business for a year if you come to the 12-week Aikido class. So I jumped at it because I went into business. Yeah, I'll be there. Knowing in my head, I'll make some excuse when it comes to it, won't I? I'll just say, oh, I couldn't make it. We've all been there, you know? So when I'm talking, I'm hoping I'm talking to all of you as you. The night come, and I forgot that I'm supposed to do this. But I used to walk across the road to the pub, have 2 pints of beer, walk back to work, carry on. Get home about 10 o'clock. This night, I run out of work. I went over the pub at 6 o'clock. Door was locked. I said, oh, blast. He said from this week he wouldn't be opening till 7. got in my car, really annoyed, because I used to like a pint, drive to the next village, door was locked. Went home, cross, said to my wife, what about my tea? How long is my tea going to be? Because I was a real mouth chauvinistic pig then, perhaps still are. She said, you're home too early. I didn't know you was going to be home early. We didn't have mobile phones them days. Put the television on. You used to have to get up then and push buttons to change the channels. There was nothing on the telly. It was 17 miles from my workshop to where I lived. And I sat there and I suddenly thought, oh, there's that thing on. Now, as odd of places, when you get a map, the oddest of places, the place where the course was only 2 miles from my house. It was like, talk about odd luck or fate. So anyhow, I went there. There were small tables because it was a small junior school. And all I remember was all night keep hitting my head because whoever this karate guy was who was doing the Aikido kept throwing me and I seemed to end up under a table. So all night I remember hitting my head on the table. But from that day on, I didn't stop for 23 years. I loved it. So I don't know about, you people, you've driven, you've come here today, but I don't want an imitation of that tripod if I know that there's, let's say, the Mona Lisa of tripods. I want the Mona Lisa tripod. That's the way I've always been, even if I have to save up for it. So they said, look, if you want really to learn Aikido, you've got to drive to London. So I decided that I would drive to London and train at a place called The Hut. It's a pub, and at the back of it, it's got a building, not as quite as big as this. So I want to tell you a bit about that. Aikido first started in Hillingdon at The Hut, and it was there was a judo and a boxing school, and a famous judo man, very famous judo man, Kenshiro Abe, he come to teach them judo. But he said, I've just been to Iwama and I've met this little old man, Sensei, who's doing this new art called Aikido. He's showed me some things and it's really fascinating, and I'm going to show you a little bit, but what I'll do is, if you're interested, I'll send over Mr. Nakazono, who's training a lot more than what I have in the art. So Nakazono came over and they enjoyed it so much they stopped boxing and judo and made it into an Aikido school. It was run by a man called Ken Williams, who was Welsh, and he then finally decided to go back to Wales, and he left it to his right-hand person, who was Hayden Foster. So when I started training in 1973, I got to Orange Belt and I thought, I need more. So I started driving to every Sunday morning, regardless of weather conditions, to train on a Sunday. Until you was a brown belt, you couldn't train on the Monday, and then you could train with weapons, but you weren't allowed to touch a weapon until you was a first kyu. So don't matter how much I begged and pleaded and told them how far I'd come, you wait till you're brown belt. So what I'd done was I bought in 1975 Saito Sensei's cine films and a book series that he made. And when the wife used to go out, I'd put the films on, and then because I weren't sure what he'd done, I'd turn the projector back and I would watch it backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and then I'd open my patio doors and I'd start playing it and trying to follow it. So nobody knew that I was at an orange belt starting to do weapons. I got my first dan. I went there in the end for 10 years non-stop. And I used to go on a Sunday and occasionally on a Monday when I reached the Q grade, first Q. When I got my second dan, they stopped using me as uke. And of course, if you drive all that way, you get the buzz of, since you use me as uke, your ego's good. But they so yeah. So I said to my mate Julian, why don't they use me anymore? And he said, because you're making them look bad. They can't throw you anymore. You're becoming too grounded. So I was upset because I genuinely, my little child's mind was hurt because I thought, well, what do I do? You know, I don't want to be dishonest to myself. You know, if they say attack me, then, you know, attack them. If they say grip me, I grip them. And I couldn't understand what I'd got to do. And it was, I don't know if it's my dyslexia or whether it's even at 71, I've still got the mind of a child. Because if I see something wrong, I just go, but that's wrong. And then I might go, oh, I shouldn't have said that, should I? So I'm not one to think about my words first. If the picture's wrong, the picture's wrong. And I think you'll all agree that we don't like to be told off, or we don't like honesty or truth. But it's easier than me trying to think, how shall I put this to them? Because really I'm doing you a disservice by saying, good, well done. Just because you've driven all this way, that's good, well done. You know, see, Saito Sensei said, if you cut 1,000 times with a Ken thinking you'll get better, then it'll take me more than 1,000 to unpick it and to make it right. So he said, I have to stop you quickly. That's why I shout at you, because if I can stop you quickly, then we can correct it quickly. So I pretty much have this theory. Now I'm going to just go back a little bit. So my friend emigrated to New Zealand, and he said, I don't like your style following this Saito, Mr. Saito Sensei. He said, it's like a sausage factory. They're all coming out the same. He said they're all like, you know, crab style and it's all... But he said he's coming over to us in New Zealand. If you get an air ticket, I'll put you up. I'll pay for the seminar. It'd be great to see you. We haven't seen each other for so long. Because he was at the hut and he was like the one down from Mr. Foster. And so I had a word with all the people in the club and that. Bought an air ticket, went over to Saito Sensei. He heard that this person come all the way from England. So he calls me up, tying a handcuff, like this, and he rocks. And even his students afterwards, they said, we've never seen Sensei rock before like that. But in between that, and a lot of you have heard me say this before, anyhow, I grab him and he rocks a bit and he goes like this. And the next thing, I'm in a Tana Henka. Then he calls me from Moroti Dori. And I'm thinking, I've come all this way, I'm a second down, I'm really good. I've been Uke a long time. So he throws me in Moroti Dori. I get up ready and he's not in front of me. He's there. He hadn't moved, but he disorientated me so that I didn't know where he'd thrown me. And I thought, I didn't feel that. What's this about? I'm grabbing him as hard as I can. He's invisible. He's not invisible, but you're squeezing like a marshmallow. So that whole week, he said, you buy as much film as you can, film me, and only me. He only let me film him. So I done that, but the power from the man was incredible. You see, and he didn't have to say a little bit, ease up a little bit. You know, I was nothing to him. So you see me fiddling with this plastic fork, don't you? So here's the story. I left the hut in the end because Sensei said, would you be my representative for the UK? And I said I would. But to do that, I had to really dissolve myself with the hut. But we had a party, and he's sitting there, and he'd been given this big Maori costume, and he sat there like this big king. And I was a giant compared with him because he's Japanese, and so he was big for Japanese, but he was small compared to me. Anyhow, he's sitting there and he got this big flask thing that you pump your tea into, and he got a mug and he kept going, tea, and he'd pass it to this person, and they'd pump him his tea, and he'd go back. And I thought it was tea, you see, and he was getting happier and happier. It was only tea in colour mixed with about 2 litres of vodka or whiskey or something, because he was an alcoholic, and that's the sad part of his life. He was an alcoholic. But what he done was, there was a Nidan Maori lady who'd been to Iwama and trained with him, and I trained with him. She got my smallest of hands, but once she grabbed hold of you, even though she couldn't get round, it was like a sucker that you couldn't get off him. She was really powerful. So Saito Sensei, he says to this guy, get up and do kokenagi with her. And he told her, grab him. So she grabbed him, and he's throwing her about everywhere. And we were enjoying the demonstration. It was really powerful. And he goes, no. He said, he picks up this fork from the party, and he's holding it at this end, and he goes, grab the fork. Of course, there's about 60 people all laughing at him. He gets really quite wild at this point. He said, I said, grab the fork to this girl in Japanese. And of course, she understood Japanese. We thought it was a joke, you see. And he's throwing her several times with the fork. And he said, that's how much power you need to do Sensei's Aikido. He said, this one ain't going to. But he went like that, and that went tick and broke. He said, and that's how much you don't. And I thought, have I actually seen what I've just seen? Because how can you, this one's flexible, perhaps they've made them different over the years, but he did. He said, that's how much power you need. He said, and that just snapped in half. He said, and that's how much you don't need. So that stayed with me since 1983, 82, 83. That stayed with me. So that brings us right up to today. And this is why today, it doesn't matter. John, I think, perhaps somebody else, but I think John's been the longest person following me. But I don't think he could do that with a fork. I think I can, but I don't know, because I haven't tried it. Because I just haven't tried it. But what I'd like to do is, I've never trained with Nick. You've been up here once before. I've never trained with Mark. There's Mark, isn't it? I'm terrible with names, so please forgive me. I've never trained Mark. I've never trained Matthew. So what I want to do is, I want to ask you, you've got to be open to this. I don't think you'll be able to do what I want you to do today. So I want everybody to take away something today that you perhaps haven't taken away before, and that is the understanding that your goal is to use no strength. Because it doesn't matter, again, Mark does it, Yamada Sensei style, I believe, Aikido. You've done Andy Hathaway's, a different style. I've done so many different styles, but I've ended up with Saito Sensei's. Now, why have I ended up with his? And I'm not trying to convert anybody here. It's because he's honest. And he said that people complicate Sensei's Aikido. So, two pens, please. Have you got a pen? There's a pen over there, and I don't know if somebody's got a pen I can borrow. What I'd like you to see, and again, it doesn't matter about your style. My camera might need sort of raising a bit. That's what I used it. It's called the art of non-resistance, isn't it? Do we pretty much all know Aikido is supposed to be the art of non-resistance? Just watch this first part of practice where I go. I go here, don't I? Okay. Yo! Here. Okay. Or I go here. Yo! With this foot forward. Or I go here. With this foot forward. So that's all I need to show you. So So Saito Sensei says, if you understand that, you've got the angles of getting out of the way. So from now on, please go past, because it should be the art of non-resistance. So the thing is, please go past. But when you get somebody and you go, that's not going past, that's getting in his way, isn't it? A lot of, talking of Sensei Yamada, he taught me a Remanagi without him knowing it, because Saito Sensei couldn't. But Shomanuchi, it's just right because my angle was here, but my angle was that angle. So when he comes, it's the angle of the Ken. So the Ken, the most basic of movements, has taught me all I need to know about Aikido. In other words, get out of the way. The art of non-resistance. The Hombu Dojo have decided that they do Ikkyo when he's coming down. That cannot go, so I'm talking about my simple child's mind now, that cannot work with this theory of please go past. If I'm going in, even though you see me doing it, that's hurting my wrist, that's hurting my bone. So what am I going to do, be quicker? Oh, perhaps next time I'll be quicker. It's going against the principles of that fork. And Saito Sensei would say, if somebody comes, please get out of the way. See, I've got Kodogai. He said, look, why make it complicated when it can be simple? So why do this, now go around his back, bring him round here and do. So a lot of people, see, to me, that makes sense. And that's why I followed him, because Aikido has a lot of contradictions, but that doesn't contradict itself, you see. So I'm not saying to anybody, change your Aikido, but you should all have a path that you want to follow mentally. And it's got to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, why are you doing it? Well, you're doing it because you see people like me who do wonderful pieces of Aikido and go, wow, I want to be like that. Well, that's how I was when I was even at 23. I want to be like that. I want to be able to do that. So you blindly get led, believing in these wonderful masters. But if I say to you in everyday life, look, you run your own business, Nick. No, you run your own business. You must make a lot of decisions in a day, you know, common sense ones. You must have to decide sometimes under pressure. And yet, we're sort of in front of an Aikido master, you know, wow, look what he can do. So we become stupid when it comes to logic. So today is all about saying, would you, if he'd got a sword in his hand, slowly, would I do it? Of course, well, yeah, but I do a different technique. That's what people have said to me over the years. Yeah, but I do a different technique. I go, well, why don't you do the different one if it's easier in the beginning? See, that's my bluntness and that's my childishness of why make it difficult if you don't have to. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do Kaitanagi. You can do this way or you can do this way. I don't mind what way you do. I want you to get to this point. So you'll choose your partner if you haven't already, and you'll have the amount of the fork that I'm talking about in both hands, and you'll ask your partner to stand up. No, stand up, please. Don't mess about. All right, so and I want you to feel how much power you have to use to hold them down. Because that's where we're going today. But I'm going to come round slowly and I'm going to say to you, how much have you got? Here, stand up. How much can you stop that? Because that'll snap a lot of forks, that will. or stand up. So that's it, good. Okay, good. So the only way he should be thinking of going when you're done, hopefully, this technique, the only way he should be thinking of going is over that way. He should put himself into the ikemi. You shouldn't have to do it. You know, we all know that you bring the knee through or you do the various different forms, but to get to here, there's a measurement. There's a measurement between me here and here, me here and here, and me here and here. This is the triangles of Aikido. And the triangles of Aikido are only there. You could say, oh, well, that one's longer. But what I'm going to do now is with my mind, I want to put them all together. So if I don't put them together, stand up. Yes. If I put them together, I'm going to go, right, link, 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 right, stand up. Right. So you've got to use your mind, not the one other people want you to use. You've got to use your mind. You've got to go, right, I've got all the bits here. Now I've got to not sort of me keep moving around my mind. I've got to somehow link them mentally and make them all one. I've got to do that with my mind. I've got to believe in something. Okay, so I've talked enough. You don't need to warm up, really, because we're not going to be throwing. Okay, we can partner. We're going to move the chairs back.